So today we are going to be making artwork inspired by the dot and our artist that we looked at who uses all sorts of different kinds of dots and patterns in her artwork. So I am going to be using markers, but of course you can use any kind of materials you want. Markers, crayons, pencils, paint, the digital options on the computer. And I'm just gonna show you guys an example of mixing dots and patterns together. So I'm going to draw a circle and take up most of the page. And it is definitely not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you want to trace something large, like the bottom of a cup or something, you're more than welcome to do that. But I don't need it to be perfect. I'm going to take some colors and think of some patterns that I want to do. So I think I'm going to use crayons and markers today. I'm going to do some different kinds of dots, different sizes, so that they have variety. They're all different sizes. And it also will have unity because the shapes are all the same. And it also unifies with the outside of it because my outside shape is a circle as well. And I'm going to use a lot of different colors and sizes. And you guys can fill any kind of pattern you want, any kind of designs that you wish to do on here. This is just my example, of course. Like always, I do not expect yours to look like mine, and I do not want yours to look like mine. I am the artist for this piece, and you are the artist for your piece. And no two need to look exactly the same. You can use any kind of shapes, any kind of lines to make a pattern, any that you would like. Oops. And my colors are definitely inspired by the polka dot sticker room because I thought that was super cool. And I think I've filled in enough space, and now I'm going to give my background some thought, and my background is the space behind my subject. So this is a pattern, so it's really not a background versus a subject, but since I drew all these dots first, I'm thinking of these as my main part of my design, and my background is going to be what is behind my dots. And some people get confused and think that I mean the back of my paper. That is not your background. Your background is right here. So I'm going to show you the yellow part is going to be the background. So this is my background. And I think I'm actually going to cut out my circle So I'm not really worried about going outside of the lines or making a mess. I'm gonna try to cut it a little bit nicer than I drew it. So that it looks more symmetrical. Remember when you're using markers not to push down super hard. I'm also drawing with the side, the flat edge of my marker to get more surface area. And this is a lot of color for one marker, a lot of space to color in. So I am going to definitely let my marker rest if I need to, if it starts to feel dry. And you can see how it makes the paper a little bit wet too. Make sure you don't go over the same place too many times because you don't want it to rip your page. And if you remember from last week when I showed you guys how to do the crayon resist with the markers and the white crayon, you can do that here as well, which is why I'm coloring right over my polka dots. You can see it doesn't quite mix, but it gets the white spaces if you have any white spaces. So if you spend a lot of time making dots super, any pattern that you choose to do, super dark and super solid, you should be able to do this as well without having any of your marker get in the way of your crayon. Or if you choose watercolors, the same thing, it works the same way. So I'm going to finish coloring this in. I definitely see some white spaces and some streakiness from my marker, but I don't want to keep coloring over the same spot, and I want to let it dry a little bit so that it doesn't, because I don't want my paper to rip. I don't want it to get too wet. When you start to see those really dark spots on my yellow, because yellow is such a light color, I think the paper is getting a little bit wet. But that is okay, as long as I don't go too much and rip it. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut my dot out. And remember, when you're using scissors, to hold them in your hand correctly. If you need to carry them, we carry them like this. So the sharp part is in your hand, it is closed, so you do not accidentally cut somebody. Do not run with scissors. Do not put your hand where you're cutting. Cut away from you. My body is right here, so my scissors are pointed this way. And I'm gonna just go in and cut as symmetrically as possible, just to make it look nice, because I'm not worried about it being perfect. But I know that I've got kind of a corner on my dot that I definitely don't need. Kind of looks like an egg. What kind of animal do you think lays this weird yellow egg? So I'm happy, I'm satisfied. I did a nice dot, I cut it out. I have some fraying spots right here. I'm gonna cut those off. And make sure you save all your trash. I'm also gonna flip it over to show just another example of a different pattern, because this is not the only pattern. You could also do a couple of different patterns. So I'm gonna do some different sections on here. And do different patterns on each part. So I'm gonna do a pattern with, I can make it look like the pumpkins that the artist had with the holes in them. So I'm gonna do some different dots. And remember that a pattern is something that repeats itself. So my black dots are repeating themselves in my artwork. So that is a pattern. I'm going to do it the same on this side, just because that's my preference. I want it to look like this, my artist choice, artistic choice, artistic decisions. Just because I think I like the way it looks like that. And I'm going to use my orange to do the pumpkin design, to color it. I'm going to use a crayon instead of a marker for this side because I don't want to rip my page because I see that it's a little bit damp from the other side still. And I'm going to do my best to color in the whole thing and not leave white space. I'm going to try to color in the same direction, which is up and down, because it helps, it helps from making it look like scribble scrabble. Because if you color this way and this way and this way, it does kind of look scribble scrabbly. If you don't color dark enough, like see, you can still kind of see those marks that I made. But that's okay if you have that or if you do that, but we want to try to have our best craftsmanship. I'm going to color the edge like this because I don't want to rip my paper, and I feel like I'm gonna. I'm definitely getting crayon on the table right now, so I'm going to make sure when I am finished with this that I get a napkin with some soap and water on it and wipe up the table so that I do not leave a mess. Remember, even if you are working from home, that we need to have good studio habits and take care of your studio space, even if that is a desk in your room or a kitchen table or wherever you are at. And I'm almost done. I definitely colored the middle a lot darker than that side. I can color this side a little bit lighter to match the other side, I think. I think I need a little bit more darker on this side. And I'm happy with that. I have two different examples of different patterns that I created, and I used a lot of dots because I was inspired by our artist for this week, but if you do not want to use dots, you do not have to. My outside is my dot, so that is the only dot that you need to have. But that is all I have